All right. Well, hello and welcome everybody. Today is a special training. It's one of my favorites because we are going to be talking about how to create wealth and financial abundance. And I'm going to be sharing my story and journey towards that end so that you can actually learn from me, and not only from my successes, but also my many mistakes. So if that can help you in the process, then thank goodness. So before I jump into the main part of the training, I always like to give a disclaimer. Again, I am not a licensed or certified financial or estate planner or money manager, and I'm not offering specific investment advice. These are all just my opinions. I'm sharing my personal story and my experience creating wealth and abundance. And again, like I said before, I've tried, I've read books, I want to share all this knowledge that I've learned. But again, it's ultimately your decision, your choice, and your responsibility to figure out how you want to pursue building wealth and your future. So, what are the learning outcomes of this training? I'm going to take you on a journey, and I'm going to start off with my childhood and how I came from poverty up until the present. And I'm going to share the key insights of books on wealth and abundance because, again, I really got involved in learning about leadership and success. And one of the things that they talk about is financial success. And so, what were all the books saying that you need to do in order to be successful in terms of money? Then I'm going to talk about some historical misconceptions about money because what I was taught in school, parents, and everything like that is a lot different than what I learned after I started researching a lot more about building wealth. And what are the most important questions that you should ask yourself on your own personal journey, and the importance of developing a wealth mindset. And we'll go into that. And then, if I could basically take all this information that I've gleaned over the last, let's just say, almost 20 years on learning about these different topics, how could I boil them down into 8 common lessons in terms of building wealth? These are what I would summarize them as. And then again, like I said before, I like to share with you my own personal stories because I tested out some of these lessons, and I'll share with you the positive experiences and the negative experiences so that you can actually learn from that. And in addition, we're going to be having a special guest, Henry Edwards. He's also an Electus Society member. He's completed level 1 and level 2, and he's recently taken his broker license on his experience in terms of building wealth. And so I've given him an opportunity, because he's an Electus Society member, to share from his personal experience. And remember, throughout this training, there's going to be some moments where I'm going to ask for your feedback and for you to share. I'll ask some questions because I don't want to just have me talking the whole time. So let's jump right in. So again, let me start off with my journey. These are actual photos of my parents. That is my mom, Luz Cristina Lopez, right there on the left. It was an immigrant. She traveled from Argentina. My grandmother was born in Bolivia, and they came to live in New York. And my mother, at the time, she was very, very young. She didn't speak a word of English. And so the way that she actually learned how to speak English was by watching soap operas, which is very funny. And then my dad, he grew up here in New York, in Port Washington. That's the actually town that I'm living in currently. And with my grandparents, they were originally from Wisconsin, but their background is Irish, Scottish, Dutch, a whole mixture of different people. So whenever anyone asks me, Tim, what are you? I say I'm a mutt. I basically have, on my mother's side, family from South America, mother from Argentina, grandmother from Bolivia, a grandfather from Chile, and then my dad's side, all European. So why do I bring them up? Because, one, my father was a very successful doctor, a very smart, intelligent man. He actually went to Amherst College, and then he went to Harvard Medical School. And once he graduated, he ended up creating his own medical practice. He had met my mother at that time, and then decided to move to California, created his own business. And my mother was responsible for managing the office throughout the day, and he was the doctor. But guess what? You would think that if somebody's Harvard educated, that they own their own business, that they can be very successful. No, that wasn't the case. Life has a way of of changing things. And my father, he ended up becoming bankrupt. He relied on my mother, and there was just, I'm not going to go into the whole details of it, but they were just not responsibly financially. And they had a bitter divorce, which again costed a lot of different money. Long story short, I ended up living and deciding to live with my mother in California, and my father moved back to New York. So again, now I'm just, living under one roof, single mom, and she was working all the time, so I was completely abandoned. Really, I was on my own. I had to feed myself and just kind of survive. And I'll just give you some of the examples of how I had to survive. We had no money. And so what ended up happening is I would tell my brother, I'm like, how are we going to get some money? We're like, well, we can actually recycle some cans. So because I was young and limber and I love to climb, he's like, my brother was like, let's jump into the dumpsters in the apartment complex, and you can collect cans, and then you can actually recycle them and get a deposit, like a nickel or whatever it is. And if we do that a bunch of times, maybe we could actually buy some junk food and stuff like that. So that's what we did. And I thought it was fun. I didn't think of anything differently. This is all, so you can't compare it to anybody else. And then my mother she would work at a job in the mall. And I don't know if all of you are familiar, depending on where you live, there's a famous pizzeria called Sabaros. And, we would be walking around the mall and we would be really hungry, but we couldn't afford to buy any food. So and we were vegetarian, so we couldn't buy certain things like on the list, on the menu. So the only thing that we could afford was to buy a garlic breadstick. And so my brother and I, we would go to Sbarro and we would buy, a garlic breadstick. And then at Sbarro's, you could basically ask for a cup of sauce. It came free. So I would say, buy one stick, get a cup of sauce. And then in the counter, you could actually spread out your Parmesan cheese. If you've ever been to a Sbarro, I would take off the top and pour half of the container in there, and then would make like a cheesy tomato sauce and eat it because we were starving. We were hungry. We didn't have anything else. So that's what we had. And again, there was a lot more stories that I could go into, but again, it was just a bad situation for me living in California. For some of you, we'll talk a little bit more about my health and conditions in one of the next trainings on creating health and wellness. But long story short, I would still visit my father who lived in New York every summer. And it just got bad to a point where I was stunted in my growth. I was malnourished. And I just knew that the situation in California was bad for me. And so when I visited New York, my grandparents and my father said, you know what, we got to help this kid. And my grandparents said, to my father, you're too busy as a doctor. You don't have time to dedicate to taking care of him. We'll take care of him. So they actually invited me to come live with them in Port Washington, New York. And they said, do you want to live with us? And I asked my brothers what they think. And I eventually thought about it, prayed about it. And eventually the answer was, yes, I need to get out of my situation. And I ended up moving to New York. And that decision changed my life. And so, long story short, radically changed my diet, grew, almost a foot, and was going to college, Queens College, City University of New York, got really active and involved with the National Society of Leadership and Success. All of you know my story. And so then that exposed me to a whole literature on success, leadership, and wealth. And I just knew from my upbringing, I didn't want to be poor any longer. So please, please teach me everything there is to know about building wealth. So again, I don't know if some of you have already read some of these books. Again, if you go online on Amazon and you type in wealth, personal finance, you'll find way many more titles than what I actually included here. But these are some of the most common popular books on building wealth and finance. And forgive me if there's other books that you think should really be on here. So I'm just going to share with you my journey, and I'm going to talk about some of the lessons that I learned from each one of these books. So the first and the most important book I would say is considered, I wouldn't even say it, other people have said it, it's the #1 personal finance book of all time. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And so I'm assuming that some of you have read it, or maybe some of you have actually heard of this book. You could certainly let me know in the chat. But what this book did was change the way people thought about making money. And the traditional conventional wisdom was, in order to become wealthy, you actually have to work really hard, get a degree, and then buy a home. And that was, the path to success. And so Robert Kiyosaki in this book talks about that he had two different types of dads. One was very, educated, went to school, was a teacher, and the other one was the businessman. And so, and who took him in almost like a son. Oh, Beth, I see that you own a copy of the book. Oh, yes. And Aisha, great that you have that. Again, a very, very important must-read book. And so what he learned from the business dad was that actually, everything that you've been taught, everything that you thought that buying a home is your biggest asset, it's like, no, that's been a lie. That is not an asset. An asset is something that you buy that puts money in your pocket. Simple as that. And so when you talk to financial planners and everybody, they'll say your home is an asset, but Robert Kiyosaki really redefined what the term asset was. And so, and then he talked more about business principles, ways of thinking and being. So again, if you wanted to build wealth, you have to actually learn what business people do in order to build wealth. So that was very transformational. The second book was The Millionaire Mind. And again, this is many years old by T. Harv Eker. And now I bet the book should be The Billionaire Mind, because again, times change, there's inflation and things that happen. But this book was very powerful because it was really focusing upon, you can't become wealthy if you don't have your mindset right. And so every chapter, the way that it begun and it ended was with affirmations. I have a millionaire mind. And it was just this kind of conditioning to think that if you want to be a millionaire, you have to think and act like a millionaire. And that was very different and unique that I hadn't heard of or recognized. And he had a very powerful story that, guess what? There's a lot of envy of people who are poor towards people who are rich. And he would actually, he said that he had biases. He thought that rich people were greedy and stingy and mean. And so finally, he actually made enough money and moved into a community where some of the wealthiest people, and he's like, wait a minute, why is everybody nice to me? Why is everybody treating me so gracefully? Why are people so generous? He's like, wait, this doesn't coincide with what I'm supposed to know. And then when he worked so hard to have a really nice car, he would drive his car in a nice neighborhood, and the moment in a poor neighborhood, and guess what? His car was vandalized. And so he's like, wow, like I can't even take this nice car that I worked so hard to earn in a poor neighborhood because they're going to scratch it up or pop the tires and things like that. So he would purposely have to rent a low budget car to go into different neighborhoods. So it was just a totally different mind shift in perspective. The next book was the Richest Man in Babylon. Now, this book really blew me away because, if you're poor, as I grew up, being with my mother, she loved pawn shops because it was a way in which, hey, she needed some money quickly. She had some stuff. Hey, can you bring something in so I can have some money that I can pay off something and I'll pay you back? And so I remember going into the pawn shop with my mother, but it wasn't until this book that I realized that The Richest Man in Babylon had two key takeaways that were for me. One, it says that you had to set aside your money and pay yourself first. And when you pay yourself first, you have to view money as like your children. And you want those children to grow up and work hard so that they can send you money. So money needs to work for you, right? So that was an interesting concept. And then the second is, who do you lend your money out? Who do you give your money out to in order for it to grow? You don't give it to people that could waste it or not pay you back. And so what he says is, when it came time for people to borrow money, he's like, well, give me something in return so that I'm protected if you don't pay your money back. And that's exactly what pawn shops do, is give us your wedding ring. And if you don't pay the money back, we're going to keep the wedding ring. So no matter what, they're always going to win. And so it's like, oh my goodness, my mind was blown that I said, oh, how many times have we lent money to people and that they actually never paid it back? Or, so you start to learn that there's different levels of trust that you can have with different people about money. And businesses know this very well, which is why you have a credit score. That is your trust level based on business constantly evaluating. I could go to the bank and say, hey, you can trust me, give me your money. They're like, I want to actually see what your history is on how you deal and manage money and credit. And they're going to look up that number, and then that will determine how much they're going to charge me, whether they're going to charge me higher interest rates. Why? They'll charge me higher interest rates because we need to make sure we get our money back, because chances are you may not pay us back. And so, and things like that. So again, very interesting concept. Think and Grow Rich was all about changing your mindset as well. Like Think and Grow Rich, meaning you can't actually grow rich if you don't have the right mindset to do that. And it was actually introduced something that was, again, along with T. Harv Eker, about affirmations, but there was actually a very big spiritual component to Think and Grow Rich. And one of the things that, some people may find a little woo-woo, I didn't find it at all. It says, imagine that you had a whole group of people that you admire, your mentors, either whether they were still alive or dead, and you know them so well because you've read their books, you know what they're all about. Imagine them advising you on what you should do, whether it's your business or anything like that, a mastermind group. And again, a lot of successful people are in these kind of groups. But Think and Grow Rich was the first book that I ever said, you know what, you could actually create a spiritual mastermind group, and you could actually like meditate and connect with the essences of those individuals. I'm like, whoa, this is pretty creepy, but you know what? All right, I'll accept it. This is a new way of thinking. And he studied some of the most successful people in the world, and that they had these groups. The next book was The 1 Minute Millionaire. Now, this book was very interesting because this changed my notion about wealthy people. I thought were greedy. And it actually says that no, wealthy people are actually very generous, because if you want to be abundant, you have to be in a state of abundance. So it's like, how much can we give? They say, I want to be a millionaire so I can do more tithing. I want to be able to actually give back to the community. So it was like, whoa, that's very different. Like, let's develop wealth so that we can help more people. And then he also talked about, or these authors talked about, there's different ways to make money, and you have to really choose a path that works right for you. And I'm going to talk about one of the graphics of representation of some key concepts in the book later in this presentation. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, again, Robert Kiyosaki, he did another book called The Cash Flow Quadrant. And this was a very important concept for us to learn, was what separates the people who are very wealthy from the people who just get by, or the working class of the society? Well, the people on the left don't make a lot of money. Because why? It's because you're an employee. You work for somebody else, so you get paid versus the time that you give. Or you're self-employed, meaning, hey, I don't maybe have a boss, I'm my own boss, but I am my job, and I am my company. So if I'm a dentist, if I don't do dental cleanings and dental things, then you know what? I'm not going to get paid. But then other people who create wealth are business owners, meaning they don't actually run the business. They own the business, and they have other people, employees, that work and brings the business money, and then they get to reap the profits. Or you're an investor, that you basically have money and you give money to different companies and things, or you lend it out, and guess what? You get a return, you get more money. So again, this book was all about how to actually, the wealthy are focused on being business owners and investors. And then Get Rich Carefully by Jim Cramer. If I don't know if you've ever had seen that TV show Mad Money, where he all talks about the stock market and stuff like that. Well, I had a chance to meet him. He did a presentation for the National Society of Leadership and Success, and I read his whole entire book and I took notes on it. If you're really interested in the stock market, I highly recommend you read this book, because what he did is he opened my eyes to stock investing, meaning the traditional method, not just like ETFs and you pay money and then you leave it alone and it's just takes care of itself. He's like, how can you invest into the best companies? And he's like, there's so many factors that determines whether a company is successful or not. You have to look at their CEO. You have to look at what the market is. You have to look at their cash flow. What are the market trends? Is there a lot of demand for that product or service? Is that company have cutting edge technology? And like all these different things. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this was so complicated. And I'm just so used to people coming by and talking and say, hey, have you heard of this stock? It's going to blow up. Like, it's going to be awesome. You should invest now. And so people jump from stock recommendation to stock recommendation and don't know whether it's going to go up or down. And Jim basically said in his presentation, he's like, do you know, so many people reach out to me and say, what do you think of this stock? What do you think of this stock? And I have to give my analysis. But what I have done is just kind of a general rule for stock picking. If somebody says, hey, you really got to invest this stock, it's gonna soar to the moon, you ask them, can you please give me 3 solid good reasons on why you think this stock is going to go up? Okay. And if they can give you 3 solid reasons, then guess what? Maybe that's something worth considering. Maybe you increase the chance of that stock doing well. But if they only give you 1 or 2, which most people do, like, oh yeah, that's really big right now. People are really into AI, or people are really into eating healthy. That's not enough. You need more reasons on why that's so important. So again, I thought I'd just share you that little tidbit. Susie Orman was a very, very popular personal finance person. And she was all about like getting rid of debt. And she basically talked about creating an emergency fund so that you feel safe and protected. And she actually transformed what we thought that, hey, if you are a parent or growing up, you're like, I need to save money for my children's college or tuition. And she was like, no, you take care of yourself first. They can actually get scholarships. They can go to a state school. You stop saving so much money. If you have extra, great. And she would take in calls all across the country from people who would say, I have this debt, I have this mortgage. And she would just talk to them and say, you better snap out of it. You're living above your means. You got to scale down. What are you thinking? It's just because people aren't educated on personal finance. And then the last person was Dave Ramsey. Now, I've had a lot of friends, a lot of people, including my own brother, big fans of David Ramsey. He has his own radio program, podcast, things like that. He's been really, the thing that I really took away from him was he was all about credit card debt. And he actually says we have to, and again, I'm summarizing, we have to understand the human mind and human psychology. If you logically, you want to say, why don't I just pay down my credit card debts, because people get overwhelmed, and I'll just pay off the highest interest first. And he's like, no, that would make sense logically, but why don't you start off with the smallest amount of credit card that you have, right? That one that doesn't have a lot of balance. And why don't you start paying that off first, and so that you can actually celebrate once that card's eliminated, and then you build on that momentum. And then he really advocated for cutting up all your credit cards and using cash, because it's more painful to use cash than it is to use a credit card. And I agree with him. There's psychologically, it's like, I'm going to get points for my credit card, and you end up using it, you're like, oh my goodness, how am I going to pay that? So you become loosey goosey with your money, and then you find yourself in debt a lot. And long story short, I thought I could have mastered the discipline over my credit cards. And I'm like, you know what, I'll just build up points. Well, the answer is that I didn't. And so there came a point in my life where I had to actually cut up all my credit cards because I was just using them too much and I had to follow the James Ramsey method. Now, I kept one and I kept it not in my wallet, or I kept it somewhere like hidden so that I would only have to use it in emergencies, because in America, you always need a credit card. You can't always have a debit card. And then once I was able to master the discipline of only, using my debit card, then I could earn the right to actually have a credit card. So again, I know I've been talking a lot and sharing with you a lot about these books, but these are some very important concepts. So before I jump further, does anybody want to share if they've read any of these books or insights that they have had as a result of reading them? I'd love to hear if anybody wants to share a comment about that. Anybody? Okay. If no one has a comment, I'll keep going. So we'll have some other time for discussions. The next thing is I want to talk about is the why. Why do you want to become wealthy? Now, there was a book by Hill Harper, and if you don't know who Hill Harper is, he's a famous actor, and he almost died of a health illness. And he wrote this book called The Wealth Cure. And you really thought that it's going to be all about money, but he actually transforms your idea of what you really think money is all about. And what he did is he basically said, hey, I was partying out, going to the club, I was, spending all this money. And what ended up happening is that I wasn't living my life. I was getting in debt and doing all this other kind of stuff. And then once he had an illness that he was going to die, it transformed his life. So he takes a train ride to like rediscover himself. And he starts asking all these different questions on what do I do? What do I want to create? And so this book is not what you expect it to be. He starts asking these questions. Why do you want to be wealthy? What really makes you happy? What really motivates you? And I remember doing the exercises in this book, and I'm like, you know what? I really going to have to figure out why do I want to create wealth? Why is it important to me? What makes me happy? What makes me fulfilled? And so I want to ask, I'm going to take two people to really ask this question. Why do you want to be wealthy? What really makes you happy and what motivates you? So I'm going to go first so I can lead by example. So for me, why I want to be wealthy is I want to be able to make enough money so that I can help fund the things that I really care about. A leftist society is something that I really, really care about because I love doing this. Again, nobody is paying to be here. It's all free for people to benefit. If I could do this full time, this is what I would do. And so I want to do things that are helping fuel this dream of being able to help more and more people. So I have bills and expenses to pay for. So that is one of the reasons why I want to work and make money. The other thing is I want my wife to be able to have kids and not work, and at least, or work part-time, because that means she can actually dedicate time. Or I want to be able to give good health care to my animals. Everybody knows that I have like so many fur babies, it's ridiculous. So those are my reasons. I want to be able to travel and visit ancient ruins. I'm a big fan of that show, Ancient Aliens, and I want to go to Peru, to Machu Picchu. I want to go to Egypt and see the pyramids. So those are my reasons. So who would like to share what their reasons are for building wealth? And, feel free to raise your hand, or if nobody raises their hand, I might call on some people. Okay. Who's that? Okay, you go.
Yeah.
Beth,
Hey.
all right. Okay, Beth, why don't you share why would you want to be wealthy? And while you do that, give me 1 second. You can share with the group. I'm going to be listening, but I'm going to close the blinds so the light doesn't come in. All right, so continue. Share with us.
So my biggest reason for trying to get wealthy is so that I can help out other people. Right now I have enough that I can help out my kids, but I want to be in a position where I can give more to charity. But I also want to be able to travel, because I didn't get to do a whole lot of stuff when I was a kid because we didn't have a lot of money. And so I kind of want the opportunity to make up for those opportunities I didn't have when I was younger. But yeah, my main thing is actually so that I have more to contribute to other people.
Absolutely, 100%. Again, that reminds me of everything I was reading in the 1 Minute Millionaire. It's like that's what you can actually do when you have money is you can actually help people with it. And so, no, thanks so much for sharing, Beth. And I want to take one other person. Who else wants to share why they want to be wealthy? I'd love to hear it. Don't be shy.
I can go if nobody wants to.
Go ahead, Usmane.
All right. The reasons are there's a lot of reasons I want to be wealthy. First of
Yeah.
all, would be to be able to afford the main basic living things,
Yeah.
and also to help out other people because I believe that other people also are really important and lift out everyone as together. If such as improving the quality of life. By improving the quality of life, by one way, I mean access to better education, which can also lead to other factors, access to better food, and so on and on.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I want to be wealthy too. I want to eat better food. We've been talking about the health and the environment. I want to be able to afford the cleanest water. I want to be able to buy the organic foods. Hey, listen, I've lived on budgets where I can't do that. But Usmane, I think you also have a very big vision for you wanting to actually help your country. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, of course I can. My biggest goal is helping out my nation, not only my nation also, but other nations around the world, because I was born in West Africa and I grew up in West Africa. And being grown up and in West Africa, I've seen a lot of people in poverty and all types of challenges. Therefore, I don't want other people also I don't want other people to to live the same life that the Africans people are living, because I think it's not really fair and people are not really helping each other. And such as there's low levels of education, lack of electricity, lack of water, just lack of the
Usmani, you cut out. I think that the last thing that you were saying is a lack of education, a lack of water. No, I think that's great. I'm sorry that your audio connection got a little cut off, but I really appreciate you sharing that. So I don't know about you, but I'm really inspired by that. From Beth sharing how she wants to help more. Usmane, and again, look at Susan. I'm reading your comments in the chat as well, so that you can help people recover from addictions and do for your church charities. These are all reasons that are constructive. Okay. And the more constructive, the more emotion that you have towards doing something constructive and helpful, guess what's going to happen? It's going to manifest even quicker. As long as you have a vision for it, as long as there's emotion behind it, if you have a commitment to getting that done and you take action every day and you're being held accountable, either with mentors, coaches, whatever it is, there's nothing that's going to stop you from actually achieving that. And I've listened to so many people that, successful entrepreneurs, Patrick Bet David, and he has all these videos online. And he's like, money is a game. That's how you have to actually learn about it. Think about it. Like if you've ever played a video game, the more practice that you have at it, the better you become. But somebody could be, easily bored by this game. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing these things? But if you have something at stake in the game, if you have money on the line, if you have people that you really want to help, well, guess what? That's going to motivate you to really work harder and get something done so that you can achieve something. So great shares, everybody. I really appreciate it. So let's keep going. So the next thing that I want to share is about what is your wealth mindset? So for me, I learned about a wealth mindset from all the different books that I read. And there is a poor mindset and a wealth mindset. And this was actually very interesting for me because I know people who actually have poor mindsets. Whenever they see something, what do they say? I can't afford this, right? Rich people are greedy. Money is evil. And they say, you know what? they have a sense of entitlement, right? I deserve to have this money. Whether my parents die or not, I should get this house, because that's my parent and I need that money because of what I need, right? And they said, you know what? Everybody should be taxed because you know what? We all should be equal. Everybody should make the same amount of money. And again, these are all just generalizations, but some of you probably have heard of these things. And guess what? When you have a poor mindset, you're coming from a place of fear. Hey, there's only a certain amount of money in the world. You either got some or you get it by taking it from other people. This is not going to lead you to actually building wealth. The opposite is actually having a wealth mindset. Instead of saying, I can't afford this, it's like, how can I afford this? Instead of viewing rich people as evil and greedy, hey, rich people can actually be very generous. What if you start a nonprofit? Who do you think your biggest donors are going to be? Rich people who want to actually contribute, that they've mastered the money game and they want to use the money somehow. Well, why send some over here, helping these people? You just have to learn how to do that, right? They don't view money as evil. They basically see money as just an energy exchange. And so for people who have a wealth mindset, they actually think that wealthy individuals are wealthy because of merit. Somehow they have provided value for other people. And the best example where I think so many people have hatred towards Jeff Bezos, the head of Amazon, right? Some of you have probably heard of the critiques. Oh, guess what? It's taken over. It's closing out the main streets, the local businesses, and whatever your politics or whatever it may be, the guy created a company, and that anything that I want, a water bottle and stuff like that, could show up to my door within less than 24 to 48 hours instantly, just with some clicks of a button. It's quite amazing. It's impressive, right? He has provided a lot of value to people and changed the things. Now, you can actually go ahead and debate it. I'm not here to debate it or not. I just know that he's provided tremendous amount of value. And if I was related to Jeff Bezos, you bet your butt I would be interviewing him, learning everything I can from him to understand business. Again, I would use all the business principles to achieve a positive outcome and be constructive and not hurt any other people. But definitely, I would. So when you actually have, have a wealth mindset, guess what? You really don't want equality of outcome. You don't want to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to force everybody to be equal. Why? It's because you actually believe that people can earn. You don't want to have people who are at an advantage versus other people. You just want to make sure that there's a level playing field, that we all have equal opportunity. Because guess what? If you had a race and you're running, what happens if you run that race and then suddenly, you've been working, training, and run the fastest? Well, you want to be able to do that, have be recognized for that achievement, maybe get endorsements for all your hard work because you put something in it. What would a race be if you could actually do this whole race and say, I'm sorry, nobody's going to win. Everybody gets a trophy. It takes something out of it. So again, I'm just sharing with you some of these concepts of people who have a wealth mindset. They believe in equal of opportunity, not equal outcome. And instead of actually being very pessimistic and say, oh my goodness, there's only limited resources in the world, they actually believe that, there is abundance. Right now, I don't have time in this training to go at the source of what is money, but there's a lot of videos and basically talk about it. Money is just trust. It is created out of thin air. The government, the United States, the Fed, with a click of a couple buttons can turn up money instantly and lend it out to banks so that more people can lend out money. Like, it is incredible, and if you look at nature, when you actually plant a tree or a fruit tree, well, guess what? It doesn't just plant the tree so that it can have one little apple. It actually provides so many amount of apples, and each apple has so many different seeds. And again, those apples can feed so many more apples. So if we just look to nature, abundance is around us everywhere. But if you are in a poor mindset, you're not going to see that abundance. You're only going to see scarcity. And I don't know if all of you are fans of Dave Chappelle. I think he's hilarious. And he had a special called Sticks and Stones. And he talked about how he got mad at his father. And he was like, I'm so mad that I'm poor. And his dad says, son, you are not poor. You are broke. There is a difference. Poor is a mindset, broke is just a cash flow problem or whatever he said. So I really love that because I think it really, just summarized this whole key aspect of that. Okay. The next thing is, let's talk about misconceptions of wealth. Okay. So maybe some of you have heard some of these phrases. I know I definitely have. Money is the root of all evil. Has anybody heard of that? Rich people are stingy and greedy. Rich people don't pay taxes and should be paying so much more. And again, in the Bible, right? For some of you who are grown up Christian, again, I respect, some people in the audience may be atheist, Muslim, Jewish, whatever it may be. But again, I was brought up in different levels of different Christianity, and you've probably heard of this either in class if you're a Christian, or maybe in culture, in different movies or things like that. That it's harder for a rich man to enter heaven than a camel to enter the eye of a needle. Now, if you've ever studied this, they're not talking about the eye of a needle like in a sewing kit. The term eye of a needle was to describe an archway when in Judea or wherever there were, and you had a camel, they couldn't fit underneath that archway of that door. So that's what the phrase was all about. But again, to me, these are what's ingrained in us, what's trained in us. But now, guess what? I'm actually going to show you some different quotes, some different aspects versus having a wealth mindset. It's not that money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. Because remember, if you're in a wealth mindset, the goal is not to accumulate money for the sake of the love of money. The whole idea is money is an energy exchange so that I could actually do more, help more, do more stuff with that energy, right? Rich people are in fact actually very hardworking. If you actually interview business owners and things like that who have money, right, have different states, more than one or two homes, if you interviewed them, they work their butts off, especially if they own a business or whatever. They're ultimately responsible for all these different people, making sure that the taxes get paid and employees' salaries get paid. They're hardworking, and you think about successful lawyers at high firms, corporate, whatever it is, wherever you see, you can hear the stories. They're working 60 hours or more a week, not a 40-hour work week, right? Rich people don't pay taxes and should pay more. Well, we have a progressive tax in America. And so guess what? If you make a certain income, you don't pay taxes. And the higher you pay, the more money you make, the higher amount of taxes you have to pay. Now, we could go into a whole debate. Well, what's the difference between what is rich, right? How much do you have to make in order to be considered rich? And what about corporations and things like that? I'm not going to go into that, but I'm just saying that the more and more you make, the more and more you pay taxes. Now, again, wealthy people find ways to actually reduce their taxes, and we'll talk about that later, but it's very important to know. And then remember, I gave you a Bible quote, right? So now I'm going to give you another Bible quote. And there's a phrase that says, and then he shall be rewarded, he or she, right, shall be rewarded, every man or person according to their works. Again, I think that's a very different conception or idea than, it's only a rich man can never enter heaven. So let me actually give you a little bit more context about this. So there is a famous parable. It's called the parable of talents. And again, I had never heard about this or read about this until I started my own spiritual journey, reading biblical texts and things like that. And this appears twice. I think it's like in Matthew and Luke, if for those of you who have read the New Testament and things like that. Some of you may have heard this story, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. What it was is that it's a parable, meaning there's some kind of message. And in one book, basically, it's a metaphor for like the kingdom of heaven. The other is just, okay, it's just a story, but it has a point to actually share with you. So I'm going to set it up. So there was this master, and he had his different servants that were working for him. And so he was going to go on a journey. And so he's like, you know what? I am going to give you what is called a talent, all right? And what a talent meant was, think of it as a bag of gold. And they used a talent is defined as almost like 20 years worth of your salary, right? And so again, a bag of gold, a lot of money. So what this person did is, it also means your ability. So he's like, I have these 3 servants, and I'm going to give each one a different bag of gold. Okay, so I'm going to give one of them 5 talents or 5 bags of gold. And then I'm going to give another one 2 bags of gold. And then I'm going to give 1 bag of gold to the last person. Okay. And so he's like, I'm going to come back later, and then I'm going to see what you've done with it. Okay. So what do you think happened? Well, I'll tell you. The person who had 5 bags of gold used that gold and was able to double it, and ended up having now an additional 5 bags of gold. So they now had 10 bags of gold. The guy that they gave 2 was able to actually now have 4 bags of gold. And then the guy that was only given 1 bag of gold, he didn't do anything with it. He actually buried it. And so the way that the story goes is the master comes back and says, okay, let me see what's happened to you guys. And with the one that was afraid, he's like, I was really afraid. And so I basically put that bag of gold and I just put it in the ground. Right. And so guess what? The master gets really upset, and he's like, you wicked, lazy servant. You could have at least taken that bag of gold, given it to the bankers, and they would at least lent that out, and you could have got your money back with some interest. So guess what? You know what I'm going to do? Give me that bag of gold that you have, and I'm going to give it to the person that already has 10 bags of gold. And so some people would say like, oh my goodness, that seems so unfair. But he's like, for everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will or she will have abundance. But from the person who does not have much, it will be taken away from them. And they basically cast the unprofitable servant out. And so, this story, I'm really curious to see what your thoughts on it, on this story, but I'm going to actually share it with you, mine on it. You would not trust certain people with your money, right? And some of the poorest people basically play the lottery, right? Hoping to win millions and millions of dollars. So they don't have a lot of money to spend. They put their dollars and stuff. And there's story after story after story of poor people who win the lottery. And guess what happens? After a certain amount of years, they spent all the money and they're back to being broke. And so what to me, that this is a story, this is a metaphor for that. There are certain people who have skills, talents, and abilities that use them to actually create abundance. And the people who are very talented, hardworking, and have those things, well, guess what? They're the movers and shakers of your society. And guess what? They find a way to make more. And if you had a bag of money, you'd want to give it to those individuals that can make sure that learn how to double your money. So also, I think I'll give you my other interpretation of that story. I actually think that each one of you has a talent. Okay. I believe that each one of you has skills and gifts. And my question to you is this, are you using those talents and gifts that you've been given, or are you not using them because you're afraid or you're scared? And I think that it's a waste of your talent to not use that. So again, I'm just sharing my thoughts, but just to let's have a little bit, a quick discussion. I keep wondering, people are like, oh, I can't wait till I'm wealthy. I'm like, well, why don't you prove it? Okay. What if I were to give you a bag of gold right now, okay, so right now a gold coin is worth about $2,000. And if I were to give you that bag, what would you do with it? What would you invest it in? Would you be able to turn that $100,000 into a lot more money? Oh, actually, I forgot to put a zero, an extra zero, but you guys know what I'm talking about. So I like to open up to the group. What would you do if you were given $100,000? Now, I'll tell you what I would do now. I'm going to answer that question at the end of this presentation or closer to the end. But knowing what I knew back then, I would just basically have, I would have bought some gold with it, right? Because I had read and sought that, gold is a preserver of wealth, and so I've seen that from my grandparents. I would have done some of that back then. I probably, would have invested some of it in the S&P 500, and that'd be it. I mean, that was all my knowledge back then. I mean, now I think I have a little bit more knowledge, but I'd like to open it up to the group. Who would like to share if they had $100,000, what they would do with it? Who'd like to share? How about maybe
We're not very talkative, are we?
All right, Beth, what do you think? What would you do?
Oh, I would start with investing in clean energy. Because, well, that and projects to clean up the ocean. And then, I would take some more and invest it in other things that would bring me more income. But I think that addressing those problems are a minimum of what I would do.
Perfect.
It would be the bare minimum.
I got it. Now, let me ask you this question, and it's okay if you don't have an answer. It could be kind of rhetorical, but if I gave you that $100,000 and I asked you, hey, you know what, Beth, I like to grow my money. How much could what could you do with that $100,000 after 1 year? How much money could you give back to me? Or after 5 years or 10 years, could you deliver on any of that? What would you be able to deliver?
There would be a return on the investment in the clean energy, I think, because not because it's something that's blowing up right now and it's trendy. I think it's absolutely necessary to look at those renewable resources.
Okay.
And I think that would be where the money would come back from. As far as investing in the projects to clean up the oceans, that return is not tangible. That wouldn't be a money return. But I think
money loss, but good for the planet, right?
Yeah, but I think the clean energy and crypto are probably the two things that are going to really bring in money in the future. I don't think crypto is there yet. They're still trying to work out all the bugs to make sure that, it's not being fraudulently removed. We've heard stories of guys who have lost their entire life savings in crypto because somebody hacked their account. So I don't think that I would invest in crypto right now.
Okay.
I think once they address those problems, crypto is a good place to go.
No, perfect. No, thank you. And I appreciate you sharing. And listen, the reason why I ask those questions is because what you're doing is you're actually gleaning as much information from what you read in the media, newspapers, and says, hey, I actually think these are some positive trends that could actually have a return on investment. But guess what? We don't know what that return on investment is. We don't know how much you would get. You can actually assure me how much money you can get back to me. And so the reason why I think that we all have to humble ourselves is that we don't, we don't know how to really invest money or what would you do unless you have a lot of different experience and been able to actually prove, some people will claim, yeah, I'll double your money within 1 year or 5 years. Guess what? They don't do it. And then they say, oh, I'm so sorry. Trends change. Like I trusted you with my money. So again, I hope that after this presentation, you'll have a little bit more insight on what to do if you had money. And I'm just going to share from my personal experiences. But I really appreciate it, Beth. So let's keep going for the sake of time. All right. So now let's jump into 8 lessons, okay, of what I have discovered about how to build wealth. The first one is you have to make money grow for you. All right. So there are 3 ways that you can have money grow for you, and some of them are similar and overlap. But the first and the most common and the simple one is buy something, own something that increases in value. And you all may have heard of the term, you buy something low that's cheap and that you sell high, right? That seems like a very good way to make money. So people do this all the time. They buy collectibles, they buy comic books, baseball cards, art, they buy a home and they hope that the home appreciates in value, or a piece of land, and then they sell it later, years later. They could buy a Bitcoin, even though they may not even use it, like you were saying, Beth, but maybe in a year, 2 years, 3 years, it might be worth a lot more money, or some cryptocurrency, silver or gold coins, those are all precious metals. Also, they're commodities. Maybe you own a stock of a company. You bought it at 100 shares, one share at $100, but maybe you can sell it at $150, a year or 2 years later. This is what people do. So I was very fascinated. So I was listening to financial experts, a different education. I was listening to Mike Maloney, which I'm very grateful to. Like, I learned a lot about finance, the history of money, but I kept hearing all this thing. It's like, the financial disaster is coming. You need to preserve your wealth. You need to buy silver. You need to buy gold. And silver is an important metal. And if the apocalypse happens or something happens, guess what? The people who have silver coins, they're going to be able to buy things. And I'm like, oh my goodness, maybe it's a good investment. So guess what I did? I bought $20,000 worth of silver coins, okay, that they came in these little monster boxes that they were called, right? 2 boxes that I had. And guess what? I bought them in like 2014. And then several years later, I'm like, I had a flood in my basement and I needed to, fix it up. And I didn't have like so much cash just lying by. So I had to sell the silver coins. And guess what? They were $20 an ounce when I bought them, and now they were like $19 an ounce. So I basically lost $1,000, and especially with the whole transaction of, the dealer that I was working with. And I'm like, crap, I didn't make any money off that silver, off those how many years, right? And then in 2020, when the pandemic was happening, I had some gold coin. I'm like, you know what? Gold is starting to rise. I'm going to buy some gold coin. And guess what? I bought like, $10,000 worth of gold coins. It was like $5,000, 5 coins. And guess what? At the end of the year, I needed that money. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to sell it back. And guess what? It gained in value. So I made $3,000 in 1 year. So as you can see, I was pretty impressed with myself with that one transaction. But guess what? Here's the problem with buying low and selling high. When do you actually need the money? Sometimes crises happen. And I think this is, we're going to talk about later, about having an emergency fund, because if I didn't need that money, guess what? I wouldn't have cared whether it went up or down. I just wanted to buy low. And then when it was really high, I would have sold it. But here's the problem. When do you know that it's low? When do you really know that it's high? It goes up and down. So again, this is where I'm very naive. Like I would want to trust other people, or I'd have to educate myself on certain things to really know this. So again, that's my mistakes, and I learned from them. So let's talk about the second method in order to make your money grow. You actually, if you have money, you lend that money out. You give it to people, and in exchange, you get promises to get paid back interest. Okay. Now, one of the things that when I was writing that, I was like, should I write promise or you get guaranteed interest? Well, guess what? In life, there's not always a guarantee, because different companies will say, hey, we're trying to grow a company. We need to borrow some money, which is a bond, right? That's an IOU. And depending on how shaky they are, how trustworthy they are, they rate bonds. They can say, this is a really trustworthy organization, company, so we're going to give them a AAA rating, that their chances are they're going to really pay you back. Or this is a different company. They really need some money now, but it may not be able to pay your money back. So it's more risky. So guess what? We're going to rate it a triple C, right? Like A is the best student, C is an average student, whatever. This is how they rate the different bonds. And so guess what? An AAA bond might be like a 3% interest, but a triple C bond might be 5, 6, 7% interest. So you see, there's that term that the higher the risk, the more reward, but or the potential higher interest or higher risk, but you have to consider that. So if you were to go to a bank right now and say, hey, bank, I'm going to lend you my money, you use that money and lend it out, well, you can put in a savings account, a certificate of deposit. These are all bonds, IOUs, and guess what? They'll give you a tiny bit of interest. And guess what? They're using that money and they're lending it out to other people making a lot more money, right? Then the government, who you pay taxes to, they say, guess what? Why don't you give your money to us and we promise to pay you back some interest? So right now it could be 1%, 2%, whatever it may be, right? Or you can go to a company, Nike, Apple, Tesla, whatever companies out there, they say, hey, we're trying to raise some funds, we need some bonds, right? So, and we'll promise to give you back an interest. And then there's also something called municipal bonds. So what that means is if you, like right now, I live in Port Washington in New York. The government is considered a municipality, right? Maybe the school district can be a municipality. And they say, you know what? We want to build a park. Okay, so let's go build a park, but we don't have all the money to do it. So why don't we do a vote and get the whole town to vote on a bond that we're going to borrow this much money and we're going to build this amazing park. And then over the next 15, 30 years, because you collect taxes from the local government, we'll pay that bond back. So again, those are other bonds that different municipalities, governments, other countries have bonds. So all these are things. So the reason why I mentioned that, and notice that the money tree is a little bit bigger than the last one, is because guess what? This is a little bit more of a guarantee. This is a little bit more of a promise that you're going to actually get money back. So I kept thinking, now that I had tested out trying the first method of making money, like buying low and selling high, being terrible at judging it, on when to buy low and sell high. What if I just took that $30,000 that I had and I just went to a financial institution and say, hey, I want to get about 6% interest on my money. Can you get me some bonds from different companies? And they're like, sure. And they could have invested it. And within 5 years, guess what? I would have made $9,000. So again, I'm sharing this with you because I keep thinking like, man, what if I would have done that? Maybe I should have done that. Again, I don't believe in having regrets. I just use these experiences so that I can share them with all of you so that you can become more educated, right? Because if I was talking to myself 5 or 6 years ago, I would say, hey, Tim, I would do things differently. Make sure that you're more likely to get an interest on that money instead of just hoping and praying that things will get up and increase in value. So here's the third way to make money grow for you. And it's kind of similar to the second one and maybe a little bit of the first one. And you'll notice, I'm repeating some of the same words, but it's very different. The third and most effective way, notice that the tree is much bigger, is that you own an asset that provides positive cash flow. So now we're going to use the definition from Robert Kiyosaki, personal finance, is own something that definitely puts money in your pocket. So guess what? If I buy a bond, guess what? That puts money in my pocket. And guess what? If I don't even want to cash in that bond, I could actually use that bond and sell that bond to somebody else. It's an asset. So that means that I can sell it for more money than when I bought it for, and somebody else would collect the interest. So again, bonds have two values to them: what the money that you purchased it for and what the interest will get back from it. The second thing is I could purchase a stock, but an asset would be if the stock actually provided you a dividend, meaning some companies will say, you know what, if you own this stock, we're going to give you, send you money 4 times a year. And it's going to be about 3% interest or 5% interest. And we'll divide it up every quarter that will, if we're doing very profitable, we like to send you money as a thank you. So guess what? it's a very, very big win-win if you invest in a good stock that's increasing in value and it gets a dividend. Oh my goodness, that's really a good asset. And then remember, homes are not assets, because I live in a home right now. I can tell you, I need to do cement work. I have hornets nests right over here that I have to take care of. Like all this repair, rain, flooding, it takes money to keep up a house. But a house is not an asset. It could go up in value. But if I have a rental property, I own this home and I rent it out, well, guess what? That is putting cash flow into my pocket. So that is an asset. So another thing that you can do is you can actually own a business. Now, I'm going to share with you, I've studied a lot. And again, if you look and listen to Robert Kiyosaki, all the different lessons, they're like, own a business. Well, guess what? I could do a whole separate presentation on owning businesses, but I don't have time to do that in this limited time that we have together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a synopsis. If somebody wants to start a new business, I want to let you know 80% of new businesses fail within 2 to 3 years. So if your cousin, your uncle, your brother says, I have the most amazing idea, we're going to create a new business, all the more power to them. Chances are 8 times out of 10, it will not make it past 3 years. Now, if you want to give them money and be an angel investor, because that's what they're called, because you're really, you're being like an angel. It's very unlikely you're going to get anything in return for that money. You should think of it as the lottery. That's what's going to happen. But there are other things that can actually make a more difference on investing into a business or owning a business. I've owned multi-level marketing businesses. I know that they get a bad rap as being pyramid schemes. Again, my advice, without going into too much detail, is be very cautious with them, because I've learned a lot from multi-level marketing and been part of them. You learn about sales, you know about how to communicate with people. But the problem is that they make promises. You're going to be wealthy, you're going to be rich, but it actually takes so much work and so much salesmanship to be able to do that. And so they can tend to mislead people. And you want to have nice structures that a lot of people end up spending a lot more money than making money from those businesses. So you have to be very careful. Not all of them are bad. You can still gain some skills, but I'm just telling you to all be careful. Have the right team and the right partners. I went into business with different individuals, and guess what? I trusted them, and I thought that they had the experience, but they didn't have the experience. I thought that they had a lot of integrity, but guess what? Whenever I asked them to do something, they were a business partner. They didn't do it. And every time I would say, hey, did you do that? They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. This couldn't happen. And this happened. It's like, dude, we're in a business together. Like, we depend upon it. We're living upon this. We can't operate if we're not doing what we're said we were going to do. So again, it could be a business partners is like marriage. You have to be very selective and don't just jump into bed with anybody thinking that you're going to be successful. A business is successful if it has a proven cash flow. I used to work for needcapital.ai, and we would help match investors with people who had different business ideas. Guess what? People want to get money from every wealthy individuals, but they have no proof that they're going to actually be successful at it. So the first question is going to be, okay, if you have a problem, you have a product or service, what is your traction? Where have you gone? They're like, oh no, we haven't done anything yet, but if you give us money, we're going to do amazing. It's like, no, boo. Like, work your butt off. Show me that you can actually bring cash flow and that people actually want this product or service before you start asking for a bunch of money. So again, something to consider. Get everything done in writing for legal purposes. I went into agreements with just a handshake, and guess what? The business, didn't succeed. And I wish I had something in writing. And they're like, okay, we're just going to end the business. And it's like, wait a minute, what about me? I didn't have anything writing because I was trusting people. So you start to learn about that. And then the last thing I'll say is I was working in different businesses, and you have business to business where somebody says, hey, Tim, you know what? I'm going to help your business. Why don't you come into agreement with me, and I'm going to introduce you to all these big accounts, and you're going to make thousands upon thousands, millions of dollars if you just work for me and give me a little commission or money on the side. And I can tell you that so many people made so many promises, and they said, let's get an agreement together. Before I introduce you to my contacts, I want an agreement. And we would have to go to legal, and they would want to edit these agreements. And guess what? Nothing happened. They may have done a couple of introductions. So do you know that I've spent and wasted more money on people making promises, wanting to make amendments and changes to agreements that didn't do anything at all? So again, my level of BS meter, is a very highly attuned now, being in the business world and seeing people that make promises. I just basically said, don't make me promises, show me. All right, you want to be in business with me? Prove to me that you can deliver, and then we'll talk about it before we come up with an agreement. Again, it takes a lot of experience for you to do that and come to that. But I hope that was helpful for some people who are interested in starting business. So we're running a little short on time because I want to make sure that we cover a lot. We're only into lesson 2. Grow money faster than inflation. So inflation means prices are increasing. And if your salary is the same and everything costs more, well, guess what? The purchasing power of that money or currency has gone down. So in the beginning of the year, if you bought a loaf of bread for $1 and you get paid $100 for all your food, and at the end of the year, that loaf cost $1.03, because they say the average inflation over time is about 3%, right? Or it could fluctuate from 2 to 3, and it could go up and down at different times. Well, guess what? I still get paid $100. I can't buy as much bread as I once did in the past. And there are many reasons for inflation that we don't have to go into. But again, what's the point of me investing my money and getting 3% interest than if at the end of the year, inflation was 3%? I didn't grow my money. It's exactly where it was from the beginning. So again, an important concept to understand. And then this was a slide that I found that was kind of similar to lesson number 3. Choose which investment method that you want to make your money in. And I remember in the book, The 1 Minute Millionaire, it says, look at all these different asset classes. Okay. I want you to close your eyes and think, is this the method that you really want to make money in? And I remember going through one and like feeling strongly. I'm like, I feel strongly about investing in the stock market. I feel strongly about the business, but real estate, I don't have any really interest in it. Maybe I could. Again, if you're not passionate about that, then don't do it, right? If you want to invest in real estate because you want to diversify your portfolio, there's something called real estate investment trusts that you can just buy an ETF and say, you know what? Let other people who really love real estate, you go and give me some money and help, give me some dividends after you invest in real estate, because it's not something I'm passionate about, right? Business products, stock markets, you can start your own business. Internet, social media is a new business method. Back then it was email marketing. Now it's really about having product services, your own brand. So these are all the different methods. So choose your method. So now I want to introduce Henry Edwards, okay, as our special guest. Henry's an elected society member, and he, was sharing with me that he had a desire to build wealth, and he's actually taking action towards that. So we wanted to take about 10 minutes to basically have you hear his story, what he's done, how he's overcome his challenges, and what he's learned about building wealth. So Henry, take it away.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everyone. My name is Henry Edwards, and yes, I am a second-level member of elected society. I've been honored to be here 3 years working with Tim, learning, picking up the fundamentals. I've learned so much, and I'm honored to have this time to share my story with you. Hopefully, some of you guys may be inspired or even motivated to achieve your dreams. I was born in New York City, the Big Apple, with the American dream, wanting a house, picket fence, car, all those nice things. But I was in the Bronx, living in poverty. This is what this slide represents. The hip hop era, graffiti, crime written, drugs, things of that nature. I was raised in Forest Projects on 163rd Street, not far from Prospect Avenue. Some of you may know about that. A very, very poor area. Some of you know poverty makes you sick. You know, I became ill, depressed at one point. Similar to Tim's story, coming home, searching for change from school, looking to buy snacks or whatever. Didn't have a mom's there to, you know, supply that. So a lot of times we would go to the Chinese restaurant, uh, the little fast food chicken spots, things of that nature, which we know is unhealthy. In our communities, a lot of us are suffering from high blood pressure, diabetes, from eating these sugary and salty products that are intentionally put in our neighborhoods. And that's why when we have these underlying ailments like COVID, it's hard for us to fight it. So yeah, I was there in that situation and became depressed. Started, let me tell you, I became so depressed I had to see a psychiatrist actually to get help with that. Anybody that's going through something, never be afraid to reach out for help. So I did that. And for some time I was taking medications. And, you know, there's a stigma with that also in our neighborhoods. People that see psychiatrists or take medications are not looked at friendly. So for me, wanting to be cool with the guys, I started to substitute drinking alcohol, smoking marijuana, and it led me into trouble. As you guys know, there's nothing cool about drugs. It gave me a temporary fix, you know, to distort reality. But after that, reality was still present, you know. So yeah, at one point I got in trouble with the law from that, trying to support my habit. And I wind up doing some time, a couple of years. Unfortunately, I had to go through the system before I found out that education was actually going to help me get out of poverty. Next slide, please, Tim. This is where I met this wonderful lady, Lucy Lang. I was coming home in a halfway house. Some of you guys may know a halfway house is for people that's coming home from the system, and they have programs like work release or school for us to attend. So yeah, I met this lady right here named Lucy Lang. She's the former assistant district attorney for Manhattan. And she introduced me to a program in Columbia University called Inside Criminal Justice. And Inside Criminal Justice was about reforming the system. They was taking a second look at why so many people were being incarcerated for drug use and mental health conditions. So yeah, after completing the course in Columbia, I moved on to John Jay. I attained a couple certificates because I was struggling when I first came home with the decision of going to school to get a degree or going to work because I needed money. So I was thinking about just getting a couple licenses and certifications. So I was able to gain my KSAT, my peer specialist and recovery coach, some of the ones that I initially jumped on. And then I moved on to school. I went to Hostos. I was able to graduate there this year, actually. And now I'm in John Jay. For community justice and human services. My ultimate goal is to be a social worker. Yeah, John Jay is where I'm at now, which brought me back to wanting to build wealth. From John Jay, I was introduced into a company called Primerica on LinkedIn. There's a friend of mine that introduced me to this company, and it was about teaching us how to empower ourselves. And for some of us that wants that generational wealth, interested in passing on our finances and our assets to our family, this is one of the ways that we do that. We are taught how to insure ourselves and our policies through insurance. I was able to attain my broker's license Thank you. I was able to obtain my broker's license there as well. So I want to say this quickly because I know we're running short on time, but there was 3 basic principles that I learned at Primerica. This is what Tim was teaching us earlier, and that's first, to get out of debt. Any credit card debt you want to get out of immediately. Secondly, you want to have that emergency fund on hand, just in case. You never know when you're going to get into an emergency, and you want to have something there. And last but not least, after you want to do that, you want to invest what we call low risk investments, things that won't suffocate you if they were to drop. Like Tim was saying, sometimes the stocks are unpredictable. They go up and down. Real estate, same way. So you want to take low risk investments, invest your money, but make sure that you won't be drowning at the same time. So with that being said, I know we're short on time. Again, my name is Henry Edwards. At the end of this slide, if anybody wants any more information or further details, feel free to email me at henryedwards926@gmail.com, or also you can call me at 347-658-9678. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Henry, and congratulations on getting your broker's license. I just know that I've had financial planners in the past, and I've had to fire a couple of them after learning you want to have different financial advisors and planners that have a fiduciary responsibility to look out of your best interest. And so I was very fortunate that I came across some individuals in Primerica. I did get term life insurance and things like that, and I was much more affordable than what I was paying in the past. So again, it's a great resource. Henry has actually given us a handout from Primerica that covers some of these financial principles that when I send out the recording, it's going to come to all of you as a gift that you could actually learn. And again, it's part of your education on finance, building wealth. And I actually feel very comforted, and so does my wife, that if I were to pass away tomorrow, right, that, you know what, I have enough of a life insurance policy that immediately that would kick in, and my wife could live off just the interest of that life insurance policy, meaning it's as if I never died, and that income is coming. So again, it's some of the things that people who are very wealthy do to make sure that they protect their assets and their families and stuff like that. So let's keep going. So in terms of the other lesson, number 4 was eliminate credit card debt. I think I shared with you before, I thought I could outsmart credit cards. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to gain the points and things like that. I signed up to a bunch of different credit cards. It's just too easy. And I had to actually cut them all up. And that's actually what you really need to do if you don't actually have the discipline to control your expenses and finance. And I didn't really discover how to actually control my finances, at least partially, was until I had my wedding. So this is a picture. These are actual photos of my wedding. We went too crazy. That suit that I'm wearing, I spent $5,000 on a Tom Ford suit, if you can believe it. I look sharp. I thought it was like great. I think my suit was more than my wife's wedding dress. But guess what? I wanted to create the whole experience. Our wedding ended up costing $30,000. And again, I think it would have costed $40,000 if I would have actually had to pay for all the flowers. We had a friend of the family who loved me and my grandmother and gave it as a gift. And I'm like, wow, you know how much flowers cost at a wedding? And that was given a gift. So it would be much more. So the reason why I share all this with you is not to brag or anything, is to actually say, I'm a little bit of ashamed of it, because guess what? That suit, I don't fit in that suit anymore. I can't wear it ever again, spending all that money. Again, I don't believe in having regrets, but if I could actually tell myself back then, I'm like, don't do it, do something much more affordable. It's not about the wedding. It's about the people there and connecting with family. And I mean, these are things that you just have to learn over time. I thought that I was going to recoup all the costs of the wedding, or at least a major part, because I said, for a wedding, and some people view it as tacky. I apologize, but I'm like, just give us cash, gifts instead, right? I didn't make up that cost of that wedding. And so that was the shocker to say, oh, Tim, you have to really figure out your finances. And so it was a big rude awakening for me. So I eventually did. So let me share with you how I actually got control of my finances. Lesson number 5 was budgeting and reducing your expenses and taxes. So first and foremost, you need to actually do a budget. I know that it sucks to do a budget. It's like looking at a spreadsheet. I'm actually going to give you something with this training, an actual budget spreadsheet that you can use. So you don't have to start out from scratch. You go and you figure out where's all your money going. And then you try to say, is this essential? Is this, very important, or is this a nice to have? Just like you've all been I'm training you all about your time management as well. So that is the most profound thing that you can do to actually save money. And so what else you can do, that budgets are your friend. Yes, they are. And so guess what? You can also hire a bill negotiator. That is another very effective way to actually reduce your bills. I'm going to show you a resource that I'm going to give you shortly. Also, an accountant to reduce your expenses. And you find ways that you can actually have an accountant that has high level of integrity, a fiduciary financial planner that can guide you, any consultants that can help you, but they don't charge you money. Maybe they just charge a contingency fee, right? That they only make money if you save money. So it's a kind of like a low risk consultation. And then the other thing is buying food in bulk. Costco is my best friend. And I remember where I had to cut my expenses down so much that I'm like, where can I save money? You can save a lot of money buying in bulk, not buying name brands of stuff, buying frozen foods. I can buy an organic bag of frozen strawberries, 4 pounds for $10. And if I buy fresh strawberries that are organic, fresh strawberries, $5.49 for just 1 pound, right? So again, I could spend $20 on strawberries, or I can spend $10. That adds up if you make shakes like I do every week. So things start to add up real quickly. Stop eating out so much. I just recognize that you work hard, you don't want to cook, and so it's just so easy to eat out. And I was doing it a lot. I felt like I deserved it, maximizing my time, but it was killing my budget. And the other thing that you can do is create a side business with respect to your passion. So for me, I created my side business, Duffy Leadership Incorporated. It was an S corporation. And I think that, I used it for my coaching, for my trainings. I think it's really important, if that's what you want, is to, even though I was self-employed, I'm my own boss and things like that, you learn a lot of skills that from that experience about accounting and expenses, and it's good practice. And then when it comes times towards accounting or your expenses, maybe there's a lot of things that you use for your personal self that count, because you are the business, could be count towards those expenses. So again, these are different things that people do to help create wealth. So I don't have time to show you the video right now, but here's a link. Just go to timduffy.justvive.com. This is my affiliate link. And what you do is you will have professional bill negotiators that will contact your companies, your phone bill, your cable bill, and they basically say, hey, right now our bill is $100, but we know that other people are paying much cheaper than that. Can I please speak with your manager? What kind of deals can you get us? They know what to say and how to say it, so that when your bill comes next month, guess what? Your bill could be $80. And so now they say, congratulations, Tim, we just saved you $20 the next month on your, your phone bill. And so we're going to split the difference. So we're going to charge you $10 and you get to keep $10. All right, 50-50. And you do that. And I've done that for my pest control bill. I've done it for my phone bill, my cable bill, and you upload as many bills as you can. Not all of them have savings, but they're very responsive. And they said, oh, Tim, your Verizon cable bill, we can't reduce it unless you want to reduce your internet speed. Do you want to find other ways to save money like that? And I'm like, no, I want to keep my internet speed. That's fine. Okay, so I didn't save on that Verizon cable bill, but I saved on my T-Mobile bill or my other bills and stuff like that. So again, I just want to give as much resources for you to go. I know that it's 7:01 and some of you may have to go, but I'm actually going to go over a little bit on time just so that I can cover so much content because that I packed in here. So forgive me for that. I'll make sure that, I'm much more conscious of time moving forward so that, not so that we don't go over. So in terms of expenses and taxes and cut expenses, I love pizza. And so remember I talked about eating out? Well, guess what? I did the math. On the weekend, you're hungry, you buy Domino's pizza or wherever you order pizza from. I was paying like $36 because I like to choose all my toppings. Well, guess what? If I went to Costco, I could buy 4 frozen cheese pizzas. And because I love a lot of cheese, I would shred my own cheese on top of it. And I did the math. I could save almost $1,500 a year if I didn't eat out pizza and I used frozen pizza. Do you know that is a vacation for some people? And people say, oh my goodness, I can't go on vacation. I don't have the funds. It's like, you dumb. Where's your money going? How are you spending the money? So again, I don't mean to make a joke of it. Some people are really on a tight budget and they're doing whatever they can, and I acknowledge you for it. But you'd be surprised how much money leaks out of your pocket just because of different expenses that with a little bit of discipline, you could do a lot more. When it comes down to buying in bulk, no name brand, I've done the math in the spreadsheets when I go to Costco. Just because I go to Costco, and again, you're like, I don't have money to pay for a membership of Costco. Join a family member. My brother pays the membership fee for Costco. And I say, hey, can I join your account? He's like, sure. And so now I get my own card for Costco. I don't pay the annual fee and I get to do all the benefits. And guess what? I've done the math. I've done the calculations. Whenever it's a Kirkland brand, it is oftentimes or always, almost always, I haven't yet found an example where it isn't. It's always cheaper than anything else, right? Than any other name brand thing. So I gave this perfect example of you could even try to shop online and go to Amazon and buy Bounty paper towel. And you're like, oh, it's $23 for 12 rolls, but here it's $19.99 for 12 rolls. But you have to look at the fine print. Look how many sheets per roll is in that Bounty, 128. Look how many there is in the Kirkland brand, 140. So it's actually, 1.5 cents per sheet, and this is actually 1.1 cents per sheet. And so if you use paper towels like I do over the course of a year, I would have saved $50 if I just stuck to Kirkland brand. Now you may think, well, that's not a lot of money, but that stuff starts to add up. So this is why I want to show you that there is a method. The next lesson is invest using compound interest. So again, all the different terms you may have heard of or phrases, mo money, mo problems, which is true. Live below your means. And I've listened to different financial experts that say, you know what, Tim, I don't believe in living below your means. That's not an abundance mindset. Yes, I got it, but I've actually done the opposite. I basically said, hey, I'm going to adopt this philosophy of abundance, and I'm just going to be grateful every time I use my debit card or credit card and abundance. Well, guess what? My credit card's starting to go up, up and up and up. Well, it doesn't really mean that. Live below your means is basically say, have the discipline to have your expenses and then save some of that money to develop abundance. And there's a famous quote from Brian Tracy, and I just took a piece of it: delay gratification in the short term to enjoy greater, reward or gains in the long term. And so that is the whole principle behind compound interest. So if you have an employer, 401k, or if you work for a nonprofit or Roth IRA, set aside money. Robert Kiyosaki, who did the #1 finance book of all time, who I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about. He basically said, using 401ks, that's for idiots. Those are for dumb people. Like, I'm the one who goes to the bank and borrows vast amounts of money, and I'm using your 401k money. So he's like, you should actually buy properties and you should do that. And I was setting aside money every month, every paycheck. And guess what? I followed that advice, and I think it was a big mistake. And the reason why is because I thought that I was smarter than the average financial person to be able to make all that money, but I wasn't. I didn't have that discipline. I thought that I could like build all this wealth and use that money and set it aside and invest it, but out of sight, out of mind. I should have just had that money taken out of my paycheck, not even look at it, invest it, and so that it grew. And so that was my mistake, listening to that bad advice. And I showed that example because sometimes the people that you love, the different finances people, they're going to give you good advice, and they could also give you bad advice. Beth, I see your hand raised. What were your thoughts or questions?
So I wanted to talk about the 401k for a second.
Mhm.
When I worked at Home Depot, I had a 401k. I ended up losing it in a divorce, but that's another story.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, but everybody at Home Depot that had a 401k would go in and they would check their investments, and they would be like, oh, I only made like 1.2% or whatever. And I was gaining in leaps and bounds, and they're going, how are you doing this? And it's like, okay, well, if you have a 401k, you really need to do some research. And instead of letting them automatically invest your money for you, you need to take an active role in your investing.
Yep.
My return was around 25%
Wow.
when everybody else was congratulating themselves for making 2%. I'm like, yeah, no. And it's like, well, every time you do that, they take out money because you made the adjustment. And it's like, well, that's fine, but you need to look at it and understand, yeah, they took out $7, but I made $43 and you made $6. So really, was it that much of a problem for me to lose that $7? Like,
Yeah.
you need to take an active role in the investing in your 401k.
Absolutely. And I have successes and mistakes from investing in my 401k and being an active investor because I think you should take ownership over your money and how you want to invest it. And you also have to have a lot of different risk tolerances. Some people love it risky because they say, I don't care if it goes down because this is meant for my retirement. So I care more about higher risks. So they say, invest in stocks. Those are higher risk. If you want to play it safe, you'd have more in bonds, as you get older. So this is like the conventional advice that they give. I highly, highly recommend that you read the Tony Robbins book, Money, because he spends 1 to 2 chapters just about 401ks and how much profit is being and money is stolen from you because you actually pay other people and they charge you high processing fees like 3.5%, and it really cuts down on your wealth. And so again, he's a big advocate for the S&P 500. It's a lot of different 401ks basically say, you know what, if you don't want to have a money manager and pay them, you do a low interest, low fee, and we'll just invest your money into the S&P 500 or an account that's similar to that. And if you don't know what the S&P 500 is, it's the top 5 100 companies, most successful companies in the country. And so if you know that there was successful because they're making the most amount of money, some of the highest talented people, and Warren Buffett, who's one of the wealthiest men in the world, he basically did a challenge for people and say, hey, money managers, why don't you compare your success of investing your money versus the S&P 500? And very few people were able to beat the S&P 500. So if you don't know anything about investing, like my wife, she asked me, Tim, what should I choose? And I'm like, if you don't know anything, do the S&P 500, low fees and stuff like that. But again, I'm not here to give financial advice. I've had other people who, used the 401k, paid money managers and made a lot of money because they took the highest risk account. But, it's tough. You just have to take responsibility for that. So thanks so much, Beth, for sharing that. And congratulations on being such a wise and astute moneymaker, right? So keep that up. So again, just to finish up this last point about investing compound interest, if I were to go to a bank and say, okay, I'm going to lend you $1,000, and they say, okay, we're going to give you 10% interest after a year. So they would say, here's $100 and here's your $1,000 back. And let's just say I was so happy that I spent that $100. I'm like, yay. All right, next year, okay, I want to give you another $1,000. Okay, give me 10% interest again, another $100. Yay. If I did that for 20 years, after 20 years, I would have made, with my 1,000 original, I would have made $2,000. So that's $3,000. So that's what that chart means: interest, no compounding. But if I would have gave that bank $1,000 and give me 10% interest, and I would have got $100, and say, okay, I'm not going to spend that 100. I'm going to now give you the 1,000 plus that 100 right there in the purple. Give me 10% interest. Now you have $110. And then now you say, okay, now I'm going to take that $110 plus the original $1,000, put that together, and I want to get 10% interest on that. Now I'm going to get $211. So you see, it starts to become exponential because it's growing and building. It's like a snowball that's accumulating speed running down a hill. But in this case, it's up and up and up. And so this is the whole idea of investing, where they basically say, if you can actually, in your paycheck, invest money and have it grow for you and compound interest, don't even take the money out, just look the other way and have it grow, you're going to build wealth much faster than if you try to like move it here, there, etc. So the next lesson that I want to share with all of you is beware of basically people who are doomsdayers, right? People who are on the internet and YouTube saying, you know what, everything's going to crash. You need to be prepared. Listen, I listen to those people so much, right? And it's all emotional decision making. It's like, it's all fear. These are not the emotions that I've been trying to impart upon all of you with respect to Electus Society. I really want you to be devoid of emotion, right? And be very astute with your finances. And I'm telling you, Beth, you were very successful in managing your money. I can tell you that when the 2020 collapse happened, with the pandemic and the stock market, guess what? I was listening to different financial advisors, and they say, Tim, get your money out. Like right now, it's going to crash and it's going to go lower. And so guess what I did? I pulled my money out. My brother did it too, because it becomes emotional. And then the whole point was, are you actively checking it? I was going to put it in some inflation, accounts or whatever. Guess what? I didn't make a lot of money. If I would have left the money in there and just would have looked the other way, the stock market went down, but it would have eventually gone back up. So again, these are things that I made out of emotional decision making, and because I was worried and scared. Very good investors don't make emotional decisions. They're prepared for the ups and downs because they know exactly what's going to happen. So here are some of these people that I used to listen to, and I still actually listen to them because, like I said, some people have advice, but they could be wrong about certain things. Harry Dent, he is a very popular author. He really talked about the importance of demographics. He's been telling year after year for almost like 10, 15 years that the whole stock market is going to crash, and it never crashes. It's gone down, but then comes back up. And one of the things that I always think of, like, the whole government wants to make sure that the stock market doesn't collapse, so that's why they're allowed to print money, keep interest low and things like that. Peter Schiff is another one. Jim Rogers is a very famous, investor, and you can listen to his advice. But, again, Robert Kiyosaki, it's always the same thing. People who watch these videos, they keep waiting for doomsday to happen. And guess what? COVID was pretty doomsday, and we were able to survive it. So if you have the long-term aspect towards it, you don't need to be, live into the fear. And then Mike Maloney, again, I was very grateful to him to learn all about the history of finance, the history of money. But again, he owns a company called goldsilver.com. His job is to sell you gold and silver. He does really believe that it's the best vehicle that's going to help preserve wealth. But if you listen to other people, other financial experts, they say, yeah, hold some gold, but only 10%, max 15 or some other number. You don't need to put all your money in that account, because like I did before, what if it doesn't go up in value, right? It's meant to be as a preserver of wealth. So again, I'm going to actually, in this video, I'm going to send you this YouTube clip. And it's Graham Stephan. He's a financial guy. And again, there's a lot of different financial individuals that I listen to because I like their perspective. But the summary of the video is going to be this. You just have to think of the idea of the turtle and the rabbit. The turtle is totally all about steady as you go, moving forward. The rabbit is, runs from this to this, runs super fast, faster than the turtle. But guess what? Who wins the race in the end? It's the turtle, because the rabbit gets tired, the rabbit gets distracted. And so in this video, he basically, in this clip, he shows that they took three people. One person who bet money only when the stock market crashed and how much they had to return, people who only bet money when it was really, really high, versus the person who basically says, I'm not going to pay attention to the stock market. I'm just going to do dollar cost averaging, and I'm just going to put my money into the S&P 500, and every paycheck, it's just going to go and I'm going to ignore it. Guess which person made the most money? From the worst financial person to the best financial person, guess what? The person who won was the person with the dollar cost averaging. Why? Is because when it was going down low, they were buying. And then when it was going up, they were buying. And because the stock market goes up and up, they're the ones that actually did the math that won in the end. So I'll send that video to you all so that you can check it out. So remember, I asked all of you this question. It's like, bonus, what if I was giving you a bag of gold, $100,000? I keep adding, I need to add another zero to that. How would you invest it? And here's the answer. Now, knowing all these lessons, I couldn't give an answer because it all really depends. When everyone says you should invest in this, you should invest in that, it's like there are different strokes for different folks. If you need that money in a short term, you may not want to actually be very risky. If you wanted it long term, it all depends on what your goals are. And then the last thing, I'm like, why are you giving me your $100,000? I haven't, I'm not a financial planner. I'm not a financial expert. I want to actually give my money to people who are experts at this, that really do this. And so one of the persons that in the book, Money, Master the Game, the most successful, hedge fund manager is Ray Dalio. He created a company called Bridgewater Associates. And Tony Robbins basically said, listen, what if you have a person who doesn't know anything about finance, anything? Like, is there a kind of portfolio that they don't know what to invest in? They need to, invest in this for hundreds of years to just know that it's always going to do well, whether it's high inflation, deflation, what it may be. And he's like, okay, I'll give it to you. It's called the all-weather portfolio. You need to put a certain percentage of your money in gold, a certain percentage in commodities, 30% in stocks, 15% intermediate US bonds like treasury bills, and long-term bonds. And that was his portfolio. So you can go online right now and you're like, how do I do all those things? I don't have access to that. There are actually ETFs that specialize just in gold, just in commodities and stocks and bonds long-term, that you can, set up an account and you can buy on E-Trade or whatever it is. So again, that's something that you would do. But if you were to ask me, I would go to a financial planner expert, tell them what my goals are, try to do things with as much low risk as possible, and see how much they can actually guarantee, or at least highly promise that I'll get a return. So that's what I would do. So I would like to end on a positive, one final note in terms of building wealth. So how can you actually build wealth? You get more by giving more. What do I mean by that? In order for you to build wealth, one of the biggest things to do is have a network of people that you can count on. How do you meet people and connect with people? One of the easiest and best ways to volunteer, offer value for free, have this attitude of service. How can I actually help you? If there's a committee or something like that in your local town organization, serve on it, because I can tell you that some of my best network connections was because I volunteered and helped develop and coach people. And as I mentioned to all of you, I was part of Landmark Worldwide, and I grew so many connections. I've actually have letters of reference or people who've been very successful that say, "Hey, can I use as a referral?" And I have them, and people who I know me better than I would from my former employees, And when at the time when I was like doing all these different businesses, because I'm like, you know what, I need to make money. Let me try this. Guess what? I created Electus Society in 2021, and I was doing it completely for free, 100%. None of you have ever paid a dime, to get any of this training. I just gave it away. And I said, hey, if any of you, as a thank you, if you want to actually bring me in as a guest speaker, let me do so, and I followed up with some people, and schools hired me. They booked me. And I would have never had that opportunity to do that speaking engagement if I didn't do that. And I made several thousands of dollars doing a couple of speeches last year. And I'm like, thank you. That helped pay for some bills. And now I've been going out to different schools and reaching out to say, hey, can I just do a free training for your student government? And just the opportunity for me to go there, have students see me, love the training and say, bring me back. Guess what? I'm offering value. I'm giving my services free. Now, not all the people will take advantage of that. Some people say, no, we're good, whatever it may be. But the more that I give back, the more I serve, the more it comes back to me. And so, listen, I'll end on this one final note, and thanks, Susan, for your comments, and Princess, I really appreciate it. So I have, as I shared with you through this whole training, I've had successes and failures with investing with money. I've shared with you what the experts have saying about building wealth, but at the same time, I tried it, did some things, do things. Do you want to know how I built the most wealth I have right now? It was actually taking care of my grandparents. So when I moved to New York and lived with my grandparents, they were getting much older. And they basically said, you know what, no, Tim, we want to actually give the house to you that we're living in. And I actually said, no, I don't want your house, because I had read all these different books about wealth, and that I was actually afraid that my family members would be envious or jealous. What about my father? What about my brothers? If this house went to me, what would that say? And I said, no, don't even put me in the will. I just appreciate you guys so much. And so what ended up happening is I made a commitment right then and there that my grandparents took me in and took care of me, this young teenager, and they were in their 80s. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make sure that my grandparents pass away in this house, that they're not going to be in a nursing home, and I'll take care of them. And I sacrificed. So on the weekends when I was with my girlfriend, then wife, my wife moved in to live in the house. I said, if you're coming to be with me, I have to take care of my grandparents. It's a commitment. They took care of me when I was in college. I made that commitment to them. And guess what? I took care of them. My grandfather eventually passed on. I was at his bedside when he passed on. Eventually, I was taking care of my grandmother. And then a couple years before she passed away, my dad and my grandmother said, you know what, Tim, we need to update the will. And you know what? You've been so helpful to us, and we're so grateful to you for everything that you've done, that we want you to live in this home, and I see a future for you, your wife, and your mother-in-law. Eventually, I want her to live with you guys. And I said, okay. And we updated the will, and no complaints from my dad, nothing. And when my grandmother passed away, she gave me this home. So it's like, wow, all the wealth that I have, currently, has been because I followed this principle that you get more by giving more. I didn't ask for it, and it came to me. So whenever I go around people and say, "Oh, you live in this very nice area," I'm like, I'm very grateful to my grandparents. So again, we can be so consumed with building wealth, but I'd rather end on a note with constructive, that if you give and you give and you do it from a place of love and you're serving others, the abundance will flow. So I hope that's very helpful, that for all of you, and that we wanted to end on that note. I really appreciate their time. At this point, I'll take any questions that you might have. I'm also going to include in the post-assessment link. I'm going to stop sharing right now, and so that you can give feedback on this training and what you thought. But feel free, anybody, to raise their hand, ask any questions that you might have. I really appreciate it, and especially going over time. I know that this was a longer training, but I think it was very important. One of the most well attended in recent times. So I really appreciate everybody having an interest in that. So does anybody have any questions? Oh, Susan, I just read your text, or your chat. I'm so glad that you're taking care of your mom, who's going to help give you your home. I just know that taking care of parents, loved ones, is the biggest sacrifice. And again, it's not coming from, I'm doing this so that I can get your home. It's like you really care about them and you're taking care of them. So I do really believe in that kind of the energy of the universe, that, money is an exchange. It's just a form of energy. How much are you creating, and things like that. So no, thank you for really sharing that. Any other questions anybody have? I'll give another 5 seconds. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody. I really appreciate you staying for this lengthy training. I hope that it was valuable, that you gained some new insights. Please fill out the post assessment so I can get your feedback. I really appreciate everybody.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Henry. What are you going to say? You want to say a final thing?
Yes, I was going to say thank you for the opportunity, Tim. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye-bye.